There's a reason that a dance is such a great word picture for relationship. There just is. You know, I had the chance of fusion, and dance, I mean, we talk about dance. I'm not talking about the white man's overbite that we do at the wedding. I'm talking about when you dance with a partner. I had, years ago, I was in a play, and my good friend Megan was playing my daughter in the play, and during the rehearsal period of the play, Megan's father, our friend Mike, passed away. And so, you know, I've had the privilege, as Megan grew up through high school here in Pella, that when she was part of the Forte dance team at Pella High, when they did their annual father-daughter dance, she invited me to be her partner. And there's something when you get these old, uncoordinated white guys, right, with these beautiful dancers, and you realize that there is this whole, dancing is this whole thing. I mean, you saw it there, the intricacy, the flow, the give and the take. You know, when I step here, you know, you better be there, because then if I'm off, you're going to be off, and the whole thing's going to fall apart. There's this give, there's this take. When you move here, I got to move here, and it's such a beautiful picture. One of my favorite plays takes place in a boathouse in the Ozarks. And it's a play that involves one man and one woman, and I've always dreamed that Wendy and I could do this play sometime. I think we're getting a little too old to do it now, but maybe someday. And it takes place between this man and this woman. Sally is a daughter of the Ozarks from southern Missouri, right? It's World War II, and she has escaped the home in the Ozarks and worked as a nurse in St. Louis with all of the GIs coming home from the war. She meets a young man named Matt who has emigrated to the United States because he is Jewish, and he came to the U.S. to escape the persecution in Europe. And so they begin a relationship in St. Louis. And then all of a sudden, the relationship just stopped. And Sally refused to answer Matthew's calls. And she ends up leaving and going back home to Missouri. And the boathouse is her family's boathouse down from the property. And so as you take it, you've got a picture of this beautiful, kind of old, broken down boathouse. And so Matt shows up, unexpected. Her brothers, because he's Jewish, you know, get out their shotgun and chase him out. So he runs down to the boathouse. Sally comes down to meet him. And now they haven't talked for a long time. And the whole play is about what happened. We had this relationship. We had this dating relationship. We had this flow. This thing was happening between us, and then it just stopped. And so for 1 hour, the two of them try and figure things out. And Matt is convinced that, of course it's because I'm Jewish. Of course it's because I'm Jewish. Everybody hates the Jews. So your family hates me. They're not going to accept me. Of course, it's all because I'm Jewish. And Sally's like going, no, you have no idea. It has nothing to do with that. And you can just feel it. No, you don't get it. Well, then what's it about? It's not about that. It's got to be about that. It's not about that. And then she finally, in the big reveal, comes in, no, I don't, you're not going to want me. You're not going to love me. Because I can't have children. And at the beginning of the play, when it's done the way it's set, the set has this big dock that goes out into the middle of the audience. And at the beginning of the play, before you know any of all this, you see Matt, and Matt comes out onto the dock, surrounded by the whole audience, and he tells the audience what's going to happen. And then he tells them, remember, this is a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's a dance. They stop dancing. They stop flowing. And over the process of the play, they've got to learn to figure out the dance, to figure out the flow. I've been telling you, if you've been coming to the auditorium services at all, for the last year or so, I continue to remind us of what the Desert Fathers, when they first began to understand God expressing himself as Trinity, that they used the word parachoresis. Para, circle, choresis, choreography, the circle dance. So let's go to, there we go. So this is actually a very ancient, going back to the earliest days of Christianity, it's an ancient symbol that was used to try and understand the concept of the Trinity. And you can still, to this day, you see where the intersection happens, and you see that kind of like three little leaves? You can see that people have tattooed on their bodies, and also because it's the idea, the concept of the Trinity, where the three become one and intersect. So then Jesus comes, and he tells us in John 3:17, the Son of Man did not come to condemn the world. And I want you to hear that. There's some people here that need to hear this morning. The Son of Man did not come to condemn the world. He came to invite us to the dance. So Jesus said in Revelation 3:20, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone hears me and opens the door, I will come in. And when he says, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a meal together. We're going to have a relationship. We're going to have flow. We're going to have a feast, and we're going to sit there and have good dinner conversation and enjoy some good food and some good drink and hang out and feel this flow of relationship. That's the picture. We're here to join with God in this circle. And now all of a sudden, but wait a minute, because it gets more complicated, because not only do we have this relationship with God and this circle dance that we're invited to, but we also have this circle dance of flow and relationship with everybody else. Let's go to the next slide. So now, this is what Bristol was pushing into last week. When she talked about how messy it gets, and it's hard, and part of the messiness is because it gets complicated. And there's this flow of giving and receiving. And I give and I receive and I get it, but it's not only with God, but then it gets with this person. So if I receive from God, I'm supposed to give here, but they're not giving back to me, so I'm not sure I want to give back there. But that cuts me off, and wait a minute, things aren't really good with God, and then I'm not sure I really like God, so I want to cut off there, but I want to give over here, and I want to flow over here, and it just gets all intertwined. So let's try and make some sense out of it. You know, I look at this picture, and it reminded me of something else as I looked at it this week. The smallest of matter, the atom, the microcosm of creation. Doesn't that look familiar? There it is. The intertwining circles, the flow, the dance. It also reminded me of something else. Let's go to the next one. The macrocosm, the cosmos. Do you see it again? It's the circle dance of orbits and flow and circle. See, God the Creator expressing himself. See, this whole flow, the circle dance, the whole concept, God infused from the very smallest form of matter to the greatest expanse of the universe that is continuing to expand and continuing to grow and continuing to flow outward. But here's the thing. The microcosm, I got no control over. And the cosmos is way beyond my control. All I've got is the thoughts and words and actions in my flow of relationship with God and my flow of relationship with other people. Mercy is what we've been talking about. You see, we've been doing this whole idea of, you see the expansiveness. Again, the whole idea is if we're in relationship and we're in this good flow, this circle dance, and it's going well, boom, the power goes out. So we talked about being real, authenticity. Now we're on mercy. Next week we're going to go to honor for 2 weeks, and then we're going to end up with 2 weeks on transformation. But right now we're in this whole this idea of mercy. Now mercy comes from an old Etruscan word. Those crazy old Etruscans. The word in Etruscan was merc, M-E-R-C, which is where we get the word mercy, but it's also interesting because it's the same root word that we use for commerce. Fascinating, isn't it? It's a transaction, isn't it? Do you see it in the circle? Give and receive. Give and receive. The transaction back and forth. And God, in this entire equation, initiates the transaction with us. Let's go to the next slide. Think about it. Think about throughout Scripture. We love because He first loved us. There's the transaction. His kindness to us, He is kind, not condemning. He gives His mercy, He gives His grace, and that leads us to repentance. I give, there's this reaction in the transaction. And then Jesus says, as I have loved you, so you should love one another. And now the transaction, not only with God, but now it's expanding the dance out to others. Blessed are the merciful, Jesus said. They will receive mercy. Give, and it will be given unto you. See the transaction? So the real question is, where am I giving and where am I receiving? Let's go to the next slide. You see, there's these 4 parts to it. I can extend mercy, but I also have the choice to withhold mercy. I can receive mercy given to me, or I can choose to withdraw and not receive it. Both in our relationship with God and in our relationship with each other. And each one of those actions, giving, receiving, withholding, and withdrawing, has an effect, positively or negatively, in my soul, in my life, in my heart, in my relationships. Bristol read Romans chapter 12 last week, and I would like to go back there. Romans chapter 12, and I think that I lost it, so let's just go there. Romans chapter 12, beginning at verse 10. And if you want to grab a Bible, you're welcome. There's a bunch of them back on the cart there, right in the middle, back by the sound booth. I want you to read this and hear the transactions. Hear the extending, the withholding, the receiving, the withdrawing. Love must be sincere, starts at verse 9. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. So there's the circle there. There's the flow. Devoted to one another. Honor one another above yourselves. So I'm going to give honor, and then I will receive honor from others. And there's honor. We're going to be there next week as we begin the next 2 weeks. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope. So hope is the extending of mercy, not knowing if I'm ever going to receive it back. Because guess what? Sometimes we do. We extend mercy, but then we don't get it back. And the hope is that I might give it and then someday receive. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction. So when somebody is giving badness to me and evil to me, my response is supposed to be patience. Extend mercy and be patient. Faithful in prayer, share with God's people. There's sharing, there's giving, who are in need. Practice hospitality. So the giving, now it's the receiving. Hospitality is receiving others to me, welcoming them in. Sorry about that. Bless those who persecute you. Oh, so now when I receive the negative from somebody else, I am not supposed to reciprocate in kind. Because, see, the flow goes 2 ways. The flow can be a positive, give and receive, give love, receive love, give love, receive love, or it can be negative. I receive anger, hatred, bitterness, meanness, insults, injury, and then I just give it right back. And then we get into this circle and escalation, which then completely stops out the flow of goodness. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. And here's the thing. This is where we could easily withhold. Somebody like, what? Hey, you know what? I hate that guy. He gets it all good. Nice family, nice car, good job. Everything goes easy for him. You know, I can't stand that. I don't have a life like that. So good for him. I hope he's happy. That's withholding mercy. That's withholding grace. When it's in your power to go, you know what, dude, your life is not like my life, but I'm happy for you. Good for you. Not my reality, but I'm glad it's your reality. See, that's giving of mercy. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony, there's the flow again, with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not repay anyone from evil for evil. There it is again. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. And here's the big one, underline it if you've got your pen with you. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Live at peace with everyone. Bristol said last week that the thing that's interesting about our relationship is that God, we have this relationship with God, and then we have this relationship with each other. And she said, you know, the interesting thing about it, with God is that God doesn't need our mercy and grace. And she's right, because God is not us. God is other. The divine is other, and it's not like us. So there is the thing, God doesn't need our grace and mercy. But, and I've been mulling this over all week long. Here's the thing. Sometimes I need to extend mercy to God. Now bear with me. I know this is going to sound like, wow, that's weird. It sounds heretical. Go with me on this, all right? Let me explain what I'm saying. What does God want from us? Flow. He wants the circle dance. He wants the waltz. Come, be with me, relate with me, be in relationship with me. So what is the one thing that I can do when I am angry with God? God, why are you allowing this in my life? Why? I don't want anything to do with you, God. You say you're all good and you're all kindness and you're all love and you're all mercy. Then why is my life going to pot? Think you're so good and so loving? Then why is this happening to me? And in my anger, I have one thing that I can do to show God my anger. I can withdraw. In fact, C.S. Lewis, I was reading about C.S. Lewis because I get to play him in a production next year. And so I've been reading his biography. And C.S. Lewis, his mother died when he was 9. He had a really terrible father. And so as a young teenager, he became an atheist. And that's what we do, don't we? We're angry with God, so we go, I'm just going to choose not to believe in you. But later in life, after Lewis became a believer, and he called himself the most reluctant convert in England, he said, when I look back on those days and being an atheist, he said, I realized that the whole time I was an atheist, I was angry at God for not existing. That's what we do. When life is hard and things aren't going right, and my natural inclination is to react to God by being unmerciful. I don't want your relationship, God. I don't want to be with you. I'm going to withdraw, and I'm not going to believe in you. Instead of, God, I'm going to believe, I'm going to hope, I'm going to extend mercy, I'm going to continue to relate with you, I'm going to continue this dance, I'm going to keep dancing with you, believing and hoping that there's a reason for all this, and trusting you to lead me in the dance. See, that's extending mercy when you could withhold it. So we can extend it, we can also withhold it. I was in Israel in 2003, and I had this great tour guide and a good friend, George. George was Arab by genetic birth. His genetic is Arab. He is a citizen of Israel, and he is a Christian in faith. So talk about a mixture. Great person to have as a tour guide. Why? Because he gives you perspectives you're not going to get from anybody else. And as we were going around the North Shore of the Sea of Galilee, he said, I want to take you to this place. So we said, okay. And so he pulls the van off, and we're going down. I mean, we saw all the big, places to go, Masada and the Dead Sea and the Temple Mount and do all those places. Now we're going down this dusty back road in the north, and there's grass everywhere. It's like deserted. And we go down this gravel road, and we're like going, where are you taking us, George? And we pull up to this park, and there's nobody within miles. We're in the middle of nowhere. And there's this park. And the park is really small because it's the ruins of this old town. And we get out, and we're walking around, and there's you can see where there used to be some buildings, and it's just all rubble. There's rocks strewn everywhere, these black rocks, and we're walking around, and I'm going, okay, this is cool, I guess. What is this place? He said, this is Chorazin. See, in Jesus, in Matthew, Jesus said, woe to you, Chorazin. If the miracles that had been performed in you had been performed in Sodom and Gomorrah, they would have repented. See the picture. Can we go to the picture right now? So I took this picture, and this is the ruins of Chorazin. There's the Sea of Galilee in the distance. And it became this word picture to me. When Jesus came, he brought them mercy and grace and love. He performed miracles. He brought the good news of the kingdom of God, and they wanted nothing to do with it. And what happens when you stop the flow? Death comes in. I wrote a blog post about that last week. What happens when you stop the flow of water in the ecosystem? Everything dies. What stops when you stop the flow of blood in our bloodstream? We die. When you stop the flow of relationship, things begin to die. And rubble eventually sets in. So we can withdraw, we can withhold, we can receive, or we can withdraw. When I was in the middle, going through the middle of my divorce, I received a letter from a family friend. This gentleman I'd known since I was in high school, since a young man. His son and I were friends, hung out in high school. He been around on the edges of my life for a long time. Good friend of my parents, been around, came to our daughter's things, and so knew him quite well. Going through my divorce, and I got a handwritten 12-page letter condemning me to hell if I were to get a divorce. Had scriptures to back it up, had it all. Going to hell. 12 pages of condemnation and judgment. And here's the thing. When I was going through my divorce, I didn't need condemnation. Because guess what? I had a lot of self-loathing. Do you think I need condemnation? I know how terrible I am. I know I screwed up. I know I have failed. I know I'm condemning myself. but thanks for piling on. And my anger began to seethe. Because then I stepped back and I began to think about this gentleman. And here's the story. See, some 20-some years before this letter was written, good, upstanding, righteous follower of Christ, his wife left him, moved to another state, got a divorce that he refused to sign. And for 25 years, he has been in denial. For 25 years, he's worn his wedding ring. For 25 years, he's told the Sunday school class at church to make sure that their anniversary is in the bulletin every year because he's still married. The picture's still on the wall. And I'm not divorced. I'm not divorced. So here's the thing. See, he refuses to receive mercy for his own brokenness. He's never experienced the mercy of it to his own brokenness. And therefore, what do I have to do? When you don't receive mercy, then all of a sudden, instead of giving mercy, what do you give? The dance becomes this jackbooted, lockstep, legalistic judgment and condemnation. So I had to forgive him of his condemnation. Because I realized he doesn't really understand mercy because he's never received it himself. If you don't receive it, you can't give it. Sometimes we refuse to receive mercy because we don't want to give it. Isn't that true? I don't want to give mercy. I want to hold it out against them. I want to be mad. I want to be angry. I want to be mean. I want justice. And here's the hard thing. We can only do our part. That's the thing about the dance. I can do my part. I can make sure that my steps going on. I can make sure that I'm moving in the right term. But I can't make the other person dance with me. And that's what's hard. Is because I can do my part, but I can only do my part. And sometimes I have to wait and be patient and hope and not even knowing if that will ever happen. How many of us, think about it, just think about it. How many of us, you have that spot, that relationship. Maybe it goes deep and it's really long. It's just, nothing has been right. Things are backed up. Things are clogged. I feel the death-like symptoms every time I think of this person. Churns inside me and something's just out of whack. There's nothing flowing. When I met Wendy and we began our relationship together, for almost 12 years we've been married, there's this relationship that I was aware of that goes all the way back in time in her own life. And it didn't come up all the time, but every once in a while this relationship would come up in conversation. And every time it did, Wendy would just tighten up and she would begin to be frustrated because of this relationship that had been broken and the flow had been stopped and there was all sorts of messy relational outflow from the whole thing and nothing was right because the person that she needed to get back in flow with was gone. So what do you do when they're gone and they don't want to dance with you? And I watched her for almost 12 years as she had to choose. Every time it came up, choose not to withhold, not to withdraw in bitterness and anger and frustration and rage and malice. But she had to choose mercy and patience and faithfulness and self-control in the hope that maybe someday this person will be present for me to give and extend and will be willing to receive. And just a short time ago, I was sitting there by myself, and Wendy was off doing something, and all of a sudden she came down and she sat next to me, and the tears were flowing down her cheeks. And I was, what's wrong? Out of the blue. 20-some years later, this person shows up and steps into the dance and says, Wendy, I'm sorry. And Wendy said, you're forgiven. And I'm crying because it was just so beautiful. She's sitting there, and I watched Wendy, she's sitting next to me, and I could feel the flow returning. I could feel the joy. I could feel the life. I could feel 20 years of things backed up just began to go. And I watched the lightness of her being as the flow began. You see, we can't control anybody else, but I can only control myself. Mrs. McLaren, 8th grade English class. Mrs. McLaren taught me, she said, every great story of literature, every great movie, every great story, she said, is about conflict. And that conflict, there's three types of conflict. A person against God, a person against other persons, or a person with themselves. Are you tracking with me? There it is. There's the circle dance. Person with God, person with others, person with himself. There's the inner circle dance. And every story is about one of those, or all three. That's why we love great stories. So my favorite story in the world is, of course, is The Lord of the Rings, if you know me at all. So if you've seen the movie, there's this great scene where Gandalf and Frodo are talking about the creature Gollum, who had the ring and was this terrible, vile, ugly creature. And Frodo says, it's a pity that Bilbo didn't kill him when he had a chance. And Gandalf, the wise wizard, says, of course it was pity. It was pity and mercy that stayed his hand. He said, oh, he deserved death, Frodo says. Yes, he dare say he does. Many people who live deserve death, and many people who die deserve life. Can you give them life? Then be careful about dealing out death in judgment, because even the wise don't know all ends. And I have a feeling Gandalf says that he has a part to play before the end is over. Well, one of the interesting things, so it happens at the very beginning of the story. In the movie, it happens in the middle, but in the story, it happens right at the beginning. They have this conversation. So here's Frodo. He deserves to die. He deserves to die. Deserves justice. And Gandalf's going, wait. Now, fast forward. The wizard Saruman, who's like Gandalf's boss, he becomes this evil wizard, and he goes to the dark side, and he does all these terrible things, and he starts a war, and he kills people, and he imprisons Gandalf, and it's just all this stuff that happens. And Gandalf, after Saruman is defeated, goes to Saruman, and he says, gives him the opportunity to repent. And it's awesome. He comes up to it, and he says, Saruman, will you come down from your fortress of solitude, where you're living in bitterness? And he says, look, I don't wish to kill you, hurt you, as you would know if you really understood me, and I have the power to protect you. I'm giving you, Saruman, a last chance. He's extending mercy. I'm giving you a chance. Come and be free. Free of bond, free of chain, free of command. Go where you will. You can even go to Mordor if you want. Will you come? And Saruman chooses not to. Now, in the movie, he gets killed right then. But if you've never read the books, go back to the book, find it in the library, and read the last couple chapters. Because in the books, Saruman escapes, and he goes back to the Shire where the hobbits live. And he wreaks chaos and havoc on their homeland. So when they come home and everything's supposed to be wonderful, they find that everything is in chaos. People have been killing each other. Trees are down and the homes are destroyed and there's all this terrible stuff going on. And they keep talking about this boss, Sharky, who did it. And when Frodo finally comes to Bag End, he discovers Saruman. You made me laugh, you hobbit lordlings riding along and all those with those great people, so secure, so pleased with yourself. You thought you'd done very well out of it all. But he despises. Fools, I'll get ahead of them and teach them a lesson. One ill turn deserves another. Still, I have already done much that you'll find hard to mend and undo in your lives, and it will be pleasant to think of that and set it against my own injuries. Well, if that's what you find pleasure in, said Frodo, I pity you. Go and never return. So the hobbits come out and they say, don't let him go, kill him. He's a villain and a murderer. Frodo said, don't believe him. I will not have him slain. It is useless to meet revenge with revenge. It will heal nothing. Go, Saruman, by the speediest way. Saruman turned to go. But then all of a sudden, a knife flashes, and he stabs at Frodo, but Frodo's got his mail coat on, and the blade is turned. A bunch of hobbits, including Sam, jump on Saruman, and Sam draws his knife, his sword, to kill Saruman. No, Sam, said Frodo, do not kill him, even now, for he has not hurt me. I don't wish him to be slain in this evil mood. He was great once, of a noble kind that we should not dare to raise our hands against. He is fallen, and the cure is beyond us, but I would spare him in the hope that he might find it. Saruman rises to his feet, stares at Frodo. You have grown, halfling. You have grown very much. You are wise and cruel. You have robbed my revenge of sweetness, and now I must go hence in bitterness, in debt to your mercy. I hate it and you. See, the real story of the Lord of the Rings is about Frodo learning mercy. I'm going to ask the worship team to come up. I just got a couple short things, and then I'm going to pray, and if you need to go, I will mercifully let you go. 3 things. Ann, let's go ahead and put up the first thing. I am responsible for my part of the dance. Matthew taught me this years ago, and I loved it. I use it all the time. What's mine, what's yours, and what's ours? I can't control what's yours. I can only control what's mine and do my part in what's ours. But this dance of relationship is about figuring that out. So I want to encourage you this week, in every relationship, here you go. I want you to ask yourself, how's the flow? Honey, how's the flow? How's the dance? With my coworker, how's the flow? With my neighbor, how's the flow? How's the dance coming? Where are things stopped up? Where are things gummed up? When do I feel that, I don't want to be around them? Because that's where we have to push into. And I can't control them, but I can do my part. The Bible says, he who knows what is good to do and does not do it, that's sin. I've got to extend, not withhold. I've got to receive and not withdraw. Next. Realize that extending, withholding, receiving, withdrawing are all part of what I do with every relationship. And I have to be aware of that, and it will affect me positively or negatively. If things aren't going well in your life and relationships, the first question is, what am I doing? Am I flowing or am I withholding? Am I receiving, have I received truly God's mercy, or have I withdrawn? This morning, and when they play, elders are going to come up, and we've got this beautiful word picture that Jesus gave us of the body that was broken, the blood, his blood that was shed. He gave, he extended to us. And he said, when you do this, do this. And it's a way. And if you this morning need to receive mercy, you haven't received mercy, you're in self-condemnation and loathing mode, maybe the first step is to come up here and use this word picture to say, Jesus, I want to receive what you have given me freely. That is love and mercy and grace. And you want to forgive me, and I receive that. We're going to have prayer team. They'll come up here or here. I'm not sure which side they'll be up there. But if you need to step out and say, look, I need to step back into this dance, and I just need help, and I need prayer because I don't know if I've got courage to do it, would you please do so? The last part is this. For any of us who claim to be followers of Jesus, there is no exemption from the law of love. There is no exemption from the law of love. No exemption from the law of love. Jesus said, and you've probably never heard a message on this because we never use it, but Jesus said, if you have ears, hear this. To what will I compare this generation? They're like children in the marketplace who cried out, I played the tune. I struck up the band. But you refused to dance.